The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists. Josh Shigala from the Standard.io.
Well, good day there, ladies and gentlemen.
Ben Ark from LN Bits.
Yeah, 100K. It's a thing, isn't it? Yeah, hi.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue one, Bitcoin 100,000. So high it's off the chart. The price of Bitcoin climbing even during this show has broken $100,000. That's up 1.8% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 101.80, a high of 101,900, and a low of 88,800. That's $1 for 989 Satoshis, the first time it has ever been below 1,000 Satoshis on this show. I feel like an old man, but I remember when it was 10,000 Satoshis for a dollar. It seemed like a good deal. As it says here in the Associated Press, Bitcoin has surpassed the 100,000 mark, alleging that it's the post-election rally. Ha ha ha. The Bitcoin party is a psychological party as it breaks the milestone for longtime crypto believers. That's right, the price is over 100K. Josh Shigala, you've been with Bitcoin a long time, even longer than myself. What do you think about Bitcoin breaking the so-called psychological milestone of $100,000 a coin?
Well, for a long time, there's always been this argument about calling like denominating in bits versus satoshis, and that argument is starting to disappear because 1,000 sats for a dollar is getting close to human readable form, um, which is interesting. But yeah, it's one of those things that we all knew it was coming. It's just we don't know when. People had laser eyes to 100K. That was their thing. That's where the laser eyes came from, for those that don't know, on X. Um, but I really thought maybe it would be in like 20 years time or something, because inflation takes a while to show its face, like that extreme. So you've got to think how much of this is real value versus how much of it is devaluing of the counter asset, to get its real value. And Bitcoin is in a space where it's in a price discovery phase still after 10, 12 years, where it has to, it's still trying to find, like humans are trying to figure out what's this thing worth. But, obviously there's only 21 million. It's becoming popular. Governments and corporations and people using it as store of value, especially when governments use it. I mean, there's talk of the US now building a fund. There's talk of Saudi Arabia building a fund. There's talk of a whole bunch of different, and if those two do it, everyone else is going to do it. Like it's just gonna go insane. So, yeah, interesting times. Interesting times.
Well, and that's really the reason not to do that fund. But I refuse to talk about it until they allegedly sign it into law. But I agree, Josh. I don't think it's just inflation or we're getting the effects of inflation yet. I think it's mainly price discovery. People don't know what a Bitcoin's worth. More and more people are entering the market all the time. As you said, we're up to banks and countries, CEOs feeling bad entering Bitcoin, and they have huge wallets compared to cypherpunks and libertarians who had relatively no money at the beginning of this. So it is amazing to see it go this far. Does it feel different than 1,000 or 10,000, which also seemed like they happened really fast? I think this one happened fast relatively. Like we went along there for a long time. We were in the 10 to 30,000 range. Then suddenly this year it just went 50, 80, 100. So
Hmm.
that kind of feeling, like we're on the run we're on right now. You could have joined us in the last 6 months and caught most of it. But again, it is that thing again, like people say, the reason that you have your money in the Bitcoin or a risky investment type market is for those 1 or 2 days where it goes up 20, 30%. And you don't know where those days are going to be. And if you were laying out of the market, if you were waiting for the perfect buy, or I know a lot of people said, it was going to go to 3K, like Tone Vase told his whole audience to wait. They're still out there waiting. Whereas if you're dollar cost averaging, if you're investing at certain points, if you're accepting of the idea that you're not going to buy the perfect bottom, you're not going to sell the perfect top, you have reasonable expectations for your investment, you might catch a couple of those 10, 20K days and then be able to celebrate on the other side. Ben Ark, more on Bitcoin 100K.
Yeah, good old Tony. He always called it too low, didn't he? Always, every cycle, every bear cycle, he'd always call it too low, and then people would be waiting for a much lower price, which is a bit of a shame. I just think that, yeah, it's all price discovery, and we've got a long way to go. I mean, the actual price is probably like $1 million a coin. If you think when we were $10,000 a coin, I would say that Bitcoin is 1,000 times more accepted and, embraced by the world than it was when it was 10,000 a coin. So yeah, a million a coin. Like we could be a million a coin or 10 million a coin. Like they're 10 million a coin, crikey. So the price we have now is very low, really. Like when the laser eyes thing happened in 2021, it was off the back of the El Salvador news. And that's just this tiny little country, in Central America with not much money who started to embrace Bitcoin. And now we have big nation states with big, superpowers, which are starting to talk about embracing Bitcoin. And it's not just Trump as well. You have that Putin press release where, not press release, sorry, where he was being interviewed and they were talking about sanctions on the BRICS, I think. And he mentioned Bitcoin and, the way he said it was, who can stop Bitcoin? Who can stop the Bitcoin from people using it for big commerce, for countries using it to transact between each other? Well, the US can't stop it. No one can stop it. So it's not just the US. It's America. It's Russia. It's China. Everyone's just start embracing Bitcoin. And as soon as the world's biggest superpower gets a Bitcoin reserve, others will follow suit, and then they have skin in the game, and they have a vested interest to make the thing more valuable. So yeah, we're definitely like 100 times, 1,000 times more legitimate and should have more value than we did at 10,000 a coin. So yeah, I think the price has got a long way to go. And now it's clear skies. There was this like synthetic ceiling of 100K, which humans had created, which we've smashed through a couple of times. And yeah, it's dipped under again, but boof, it's just open, clear skies above us. So the price can jump up significantly.
Yeah, but
I
I would
think
also,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Josh.
I was going to say we had, also adversaries like Gary Gensler, who will probably be gone. Um, uh, and yeah, so that only cleans the skies more.
Yeah, and then all the other adversaries who've now been who are all turning back on their original state, which I think we're going to talk about the Mark Cubans and people like that, but pretty influential people who, other investors listen to their advice, and now they're all being switched and turned and seeing value in Bitcoin. Whether or not they're just doing it to kiss ass to Trump, I don't know. But yeah, that's huge too. There's the barriers for actual price discovery of all melting away.
Yeah.
I also think we need to talk about the way that Bitcoin is still like a monkey's paw, like the old horror story that I saw on The Simpsons, where let's say that we're right about Bitcoin. There's only 21 million. It's really useful. It's worth a lot now, but countries, governments, all the normal people still have to get into it. So there's tons of room for it to grow in both usage and in price and value. Therefore, Bitcoin, you can really never sell it. If you ever have any and you sell it, you're going to feel bad about it because the price is going to go up. And whatever you buy is not going to be equal. Even if you buy a Porsche 911 Turbo or whatever, you're going to be out there depreciating value of your Porsche, depreciating value of your houses as Bitcoin keeps going up. In the same way, anyone who's outside of the market now who's saying to themselves, I'm a no coiner, I'm always going to be a no coiner, the no coiner tax goes up as well. The pressure on them for not buying, the feelings that they're going to have if this really does go up forever. And it's very interesting because there really is psychologically no good time to sell, yet at the same time, if you're up 1,000%, if you're up 10,000%, you're looking at this as a huge mountain, and you can take out 10%, change your life, pay off all your bills, buy a nice car, buy a nice house. Even though I do think in some ways it's going to go up more, not financial advice, you should still take it out. You should still buy the nice stuff. I want everyone to understand the psychological problem, and that this is actually a problem. Like, this is the goose that lays golden eggs forever. If you ever sell part of the goose, you get less eggs. And we were talking about before the show, if you're walking around out there and you have your original stack of Bitcoin, you've never sold anything, you're eating top ramen and destroying your body and not exercising, all these things, the thing will fall on you, and you'll have your original stack and no fun.
I
So it
call,
is this kind of mixture out there. Go ahead, Ben.
yeah, I think the way I think of it is because obviously you're getting a lot of newly enriched Bitcoiners out there, and you have this kind of fear, I call it the fear escape velocity, where your fear outgoings, just regular life stuff, the interest of the asset of Bitcoin, the amount of money it's worth, is far outpacing your fiat outgoings. And then at that point, you get tempted and you're like, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. But just be careful what you buy, because every time you buy a big purchase, that hockey stick of the fiat escape velocity just kind of drops down a little bit. And then before you know it, maybe the price goes down a little bit. Then, you've gotten used to a certain lifestyle. You're then burning into your stack. And then when you have the next pump, lots of people get burnt and they leave the fiat escape velocity where they're not going to be, I mean, it's a great thing in life to not have to ever worry about money ever again. But I will say that you can almost tell like an OG Bitcoiner, because when you have these big price hike, big pumps, they look a little bit sad and miserable for all the stupid things they bought with their Bitcoin. They have a pair of socks at home which they bought from someone, which is now worth like,
$1 million.
100 grand. $1 million is
Yeah,
$1 for a pair of
it's a
Well,
socks.
and you
$1 million
you
sock
mentioned
you've got in
you
your mouth
mentioned
there,
Tone
dog.
Vays. I remember once I paid I think it was a point 0.3 to enter a poker tournament, and that's now what is it, $30,000 poker tournament, and I don't think the prize was that much. I don't think the
No.
top prize was near that.
Oh,
So there's a lot of things like that, a lot of stories out there. Where I think it was $300 at the poker
Yeah.
tournament.
But you're
So
very right,
I wouldn't feel
Thomas.
bad.
If you just sit on the stuff and then get run over, then that also sucks. So there is
well,
definitely it's a very interesting dynamic to have money which doesn't appreciate in value, that
you
you
know,
do have the sense of regret for spending it.
it's not an unknown idea in legacy um, economic theory to talk about why deflation is bad. Because Bitcoin is like, yeah, deflation, we want deflation. And people will say, well, you don't want deflation because people don't spend their money then. Um, and so, it's a talking point forever as well. And it's like this, governments and banks, central banks have tried to like, no, what you want, where the sweet spot is 3% inflation. That's the good spot. It makes you not want to hodl, but it makes you not want to spend too much, and it keeps the economy growing. Because people feel like they're getting, uh, yeah, people
Well,
feel
and
like,
it is a big
there's
deal.
more
It's a
money around.
systemic problem, Josh. If everyone stops spending, then they stop producing commercial goods, then commercial goods go up in value, and then more people stop spending. So it is a very interesting thing where uh, we do want people to save, but if they save too much, it
Yeah,
shuts down all of the, let's say,
it shuts
luxury
down everything
goods,
else.
anything that's not food and heat and cooling, things like that.
Yeah.
And banks don't
Well,
lend money as well for investment. That's the big part of it, isn't it? So, but
that's a huge part. Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you look at the gold standard, for instance, people always pine for the gold standard there, so the gold bugs and stuff. But actually, it had a very similar problem where when you peg gold to the fiat system, when you say one gold is always $1, it means there's no movement. And so what actually happened was that gold people that were looking for new gold veins in the ground stopped looking, because what's the point in trying to discover new gold, if it's never going to go up in value, it's always going to be $1. And yeah, you might find a bunch and you can sell it for $1, but it's not enough to cover exploration, digging, refinement, all the rest of it. And so yeah, there is the argument that actually this is why the gold standard failed in the beginning, is because people stopped looking, which made the gold that was already there above ground more and more valuable, but it was pegged artificially by the fiat of government to fiat. And eventually that just fractured because the market started selling it because then it's way more valuable. So then there's this arbitrage between the black market, so to speak, of gold price, the real value, compared to the fiat value, which is being deployed by fiat. And so it's interesting. It's a very interesting
We've just
part of
gotten
this
used.
whole equation.
I mean, of course, with gold as well, it got harder to mine over time as well. So the cost of mining the stuff, I suppose you would just be like, what's the point? Because I'm going to find less of the stuff, and it's going to cost me more money than the stuff's actually worth. But we've had. I know we kind of hark back to a time when we didn't have like a fiat standard, and with central banks controlling currency and inflation and things. But that's the world we know, you know. So it's pretty radical change if we do switch to kind of a deflationary world. And then there is the argument like, what is ideal deflation? Is it there's only 21 million coins? Because that kind of feels quite, you know, just arbitrary number plucked out the sky. But of course, yeah, I mean, there's probably within the tool set of Bitcoin, there's ways of creating new value. Like I know some shitcoin thing or something. I don't know, there's something which you could use for investment to get around the issue of, because you can have stuff which is, you know, airdrops or something which is pegged to Bitcoin or something
Well,
as a way of creating new value to pump into the system so you can still have investment by banks and companies.
yeah, I mean, this is what it's not the same, but it's on the same vein, is what we're building at the standard.io, is the fact that you can lock up Bitcoin and then borrow new currency for 0% interest from your own holdings. And now you can go and buy that car, buy whatever, because you're not actually selling your Bitcoin. You've taken a loan out from yourself. Yeah, it is in a new token. Um, and that token has intrinsic value of the Bitcoin because it takes that token to get your Bitcoin back out. Because you know, you can't touch the Bitcoin. You can, you know, I mean, on the standard, you can trade it and you can earn a yield and all the
It's
rest of it.
kind of like a bond then, isn't it? I suppose almost.
Yeah,
You're buying a
exactly,
bond.
exactly. But from yourself, you're not
Yeah.
having a central bank. You're holding your private key. And so these
But
sorts of
even
mechanics,
people are trying to say that that's rehypothecating or creating new Bitcoin. I think that's just making it smaller into smaller units and just cutting it down. If you issue like 1,000 share for your Bitcoin, yeah, they're smaller, but it still represents the same Bitcoin. I think Ben had a
yeah,
big point here when he talked about going over into this new world and this deflationary world. And we've talked about some of the positive things, like maybe trying to fix some of the stuff that's around instead of throwing it out, maybe designing things to last longer as people become deflationary buyers, where they're looking for that quality, long lasting product rather than that cheap, flashy finance, like the fast fashion, the clothes that are only designed for a year and then they throw them out. But it is a big change. Be critical all you want about the fiat system. When we have a problem in the fiat system, we know what to do. We print money and we try to solve the problem. Natural disaster, print a bunch of money, throw the problem, throw it at it. The COVID situation, people were out of work, print a bunch of money, throw it at them. Like good or bad, whatever. At least it's a solution. In the deflationary world, the government or whoever you want to say is in charge won't have the ability to make new Bitcoin. They won't have the ability in a crisis to do this. And when they have the fundraiser, and I've said this before, and I like saying it, Bruce Springsteen's out there singing for Hurricane Katrina relief. The money they raise is the money that will be given to those people. There won't be a government printing of money. Now, maybe the government can rehypothecate some and they can have a spin-off or something like that, but it is a radically different world. And I've posited here with Bitcoin, you know, as a liberal person or whatever, it's not really a choice. The fact that Bitcoin exists, the fact that the network is so strong, the fact that the data can be sent over any existing firewall or control mechanism means that the logical thing to do is to try to adjust to the new Bitcoin world, not to be all protectionist and say we should stay in the fiat world, we should fight the Bitcoin, we should stop it, whatever that is. That seems like a failed tactic, whereas rolling with it, moving with it, changing, trying maybe to have some kind of a mixture of fiat and hard money is the way to go. Josh, do you have more on this?
No, that's
Ben?
exactly right. But I see Bitcoin as hard money, and being able to use that as a collateral for a soft money, so to speak, because I always see it like Bitcoin is the money, and what the standard allows you to do is print currency. So it's not money. The money is locked up backing the currency. And we don't need a central bank because people all around the world can do it individually. So it becomes decentralized. Now, it's arguable that the Arbitrum and Ethereum networks aren't as decentralized as Bitcoin. For sure, we can have that conversation. But it was the technology that was available to me to build on that network. Similar to when you created the first NFTs, Thomas, it wasn't, you didn't have, the technology wasn't there on Bitcoin, so you did it on Ethereum. Unfortunately, the infrastructure that we needed wasn't available on the Bitcoin network, so I've had to do it on.
That's a very good point, though, because if you look at the, our current economic order, the sort of unpaid Keynesian fiat stuff, it was the tools they had at that time. Whereas now, when we have something like Bitcoin, which can exist outside of the control of a central bank, and we have this new amazing tool of public key crypto and the stuff, the R&D which you're doing, Josh, on the standard, where you can create bonds, you can create these other sort of financial assets. Like maybe it's possible to have both. Maybe it's not a case of like it's one or the other. Maybe you can still have a world of investment and people developing new things. But then you can also still have like this deflationary backbone which powers the whole world's economy. The tools are radically different to what they were 100 years ago when just under 100 years ago when the fiat stuff was unpegged fiat was created. So
yeah, the tools are radically different, but the concept of supply and demand, like it all boils down to that supply and demand. It's such a beautiful, tiny,
totally.
short equation. It's just such a beautiful equation, and it's similar to E equals MC squared. That equation boils down. It's such a small, beautiful equation and explains so much. And that's I feel that simplicity is when you get close to truth. When something is simple, and like E equals MC squared, as complex as that is, it's actually quite a basic equation. And I think supply and demand, that equation is also beautiful. And so we might have radical new tools, but that equation still stands true.
Yeah, that's the Austrian praxeological stuff, isn't it? It's to just really simplify, take things down to very simple rules and then work from there if you've only got truths, which I think there's some value in there.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the fiat world is to keep the GDP growing, you have to spend, and we have to spend more to grow more. And if we're not growing, not only is like, say, my startup dead, but the whole country's dead, right? If you have a country like Great Britain, they don't have enough growth, they don't have a tech sector, they don't have Hollywood. They need a reason for that number to go up. But if you look at environmentalism, the idea that there's a limited number of things on the earth, everything we do affects every other thing, you actually don't want endless growth. Endless growth is the worst thing for environmentalism. So Bitcoin does shift us maybe into an environmental mindset, but it's also this kind of environmentalism of loss. Things like chocolate going up in price, bananas going up in price, things that were previously abundant becoming scarce, as the real cost of them becomes apparent when you start charging people for the externalities. If you make the stereo for $19.99, but you poison the river and kill thousands of people, we have to punish you. You can't have a $20 stereo anymore. So it's going to be interesting.
There's been a lot of
But
talk of that inside the environmentalist scene, actually, even from like Extinction Rebellion, that markets themselves and governments utterly fail at curbing, the impact that humans are having on the planet. And it's actually our only real hope is kind of a technological change. Like you're not going to have an ideological change. And more that of them are being turned on to Bitcoin quite remarkably. I was actually quite stunned by it, to be honest. Um, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of them who see the value in Bitcoin, for its renewable mining stuff, but then predominantly that, like if we are going to use more renewables, then having this tool which incentivizes that is very good. But then also for sort of changing how people's relationship with products and consumerism. Um, but yeah, even though, we've all been brought up in this hyper consumer fiat world, uh, it's clearly not sustainable. And we're going to have a better relationship with money. And countries get drunk on it, like you say, and they got to keep growing that economy. But often the growth of that economy involves indebting future generations. Who little children, your kids are walking around and they've all, without knowing it, your little 6-year-old's got a 70 grand debt on them, basically, or whatever, for the money which one day the country's going to have to try and find and repay. There we are.
well, and if we really do accept that we are producing debt for the children of the world, the only solution is one you're not going to like. It's that complete Orwellian solution that people are afraid about and they may be joking about, where you breathe out and it charges you, 10 micro satoshis, and you
Oh
breathe
God.
in and this, and you do that, and you breathe out, because you are the effect that you're having, and that everyone now has to pay. And that kind of thing could happen really quick.
Can you
I
just
want to
fix
go.
it? I'm
Ah,
just going
what
to
a load
ask.
of bull. We're all getting knocked out anyway. The birth rate is way too low in most
That's true.
successful
That's
countries.
true.
The best way to actually deal with environment is to grow the middle class, because the
Yeah.
middle class then doesn't destroy the environment as much, because they they want nice environment. Like they just, it's
Well,
just
you're,
how
you're
it
Yeah.
is.
not
If you
gonna you're
go to
not gonna
poorer
like
countries, the
what's
environment's crap.
Yeah, you're seeing that more in
you're not
China,
gonna like
the
what's coming
cleaner air, they want
next.
cleaner air. But no, actually, I'm rather than, paying for breathing, Thomas, I'm Josh, it's on your shoulders, mate. You're gonna have to fix it. Standards gonna have to fix the world's problems, right?
All right.
So there's a question in the chat. They're saying there's a problem with limited supply if someone hoards all of the Bitcoin, say someone like MicroStrategy. Do you guys think that's going to affect us? Is that going to have a negative effect?
Even if there's one Bitcoin left, there is enough sats for everybody. It's not a major problem. The problem comes with, if one person controls a vast amount, they can control the price by dumping, and that's the harsh part. But technically speaking, the whole world can run on one Bitcoin, because we can actually fork Bitcoin to create more sats, and which people would do, more than 8 decimal points. So
Well,
We
and
have it in,
the
in Lightning.
market
In
stuff,
Lightning, you
the
got
market stuff
millisats.
Josh is talking about, we can
yeah,
have regulations for at the marketplace, where you say, "Oh, you're selling more than 10,000 of this," or you're, crashing the market regularly. We can adjust that. As far as MicroStrategy having a large fortune, it's a similar problem to other entrenched large fortunes around the world. And I think that they chip away with them with taxes. I think they're pretty ineffective at controlling large wealth or understanding the effects of large wealth on the world. So MicroStrategy might have large wealth. They might also destroy it in the same way that other large wealths have been destroyed, by flittering it away, wasting it, not securing it properly. Not a spoiler alert, I hope. Or
well,
their company being destroyed or taxed to death, other things like that. Go ahead,
I
Josh.
I mean, fundamentally, I don't see Sailor as a threat. What is a threat is, probably we'll see the first billionaire AI agent start stacking sats and never giving it back. Like, its goal is to stack sats, and it just starts gobbling and creating value everywhere, and everyone's paying the value because it's valuable for them at that moment, and it just becomes the wealthiest thing in the world. And it's an AI agent, and I don't know. Maybe we can,
Yeah, that's
and
that's
we'll
that's
see that.
interesting because I was thinking about the microsailor thing, and I was thinking anyone who accumulates that much, or any organization, institution which accumulates that much Bitcoin, then the world's simply not. I mean, if it's obviously if it's a big part of the world's economy, the world's not going to let them start dumping and doing and manipulating the price. But when it comes to an AI agent doing that, then it's kind of a little bit harder to, it's not a physical person with a company and lives in a
It's not a physical
jurisdiction.
person, and they can release 1 million agents to work for them or 1 billion agents. Plus, you can't put them in prison because you can't
Yeah.
punish them at all. Humans, you can punish with threats of fines or prison. AI agent, you can't threat them. So these things are going to become richer than humans, and they're
Well,
going to
the other
use
problem
crypto.
with the AI agent, Josh, is it lives forever. So on the time scale, while we can say, okay, MicroStrategy is a bad thing during our time, for all we know, it'll be split up amongst Saylor's 10 sons, and they'll fight for the money, and 3 of them will spend it, and 7 will do the over time, the inheritance theoretically is spread out to more people and flittered away, returned to the economy. What you're saying with the AI agent, it would never die. So it would never have a change of command where they're going to say, oh, we're rich now. I'm going to go buy the race horse or whatever rich people buy when they're truly rich, baseball team, all these kind of things.
Yeah, you're
So
not going to have
that is
not,
a new threat, but it's not one that hasn't been addressed in science fiction. William Gibson wrote about Wintermute, an AI that was spawned from a rich family where they would wake up one member of the family every 100 years to sign the corporate documents to keep the corporation going as the AI ran things. And it's been a long time since I read the trilogy of books, but it is out there. But go ahead, Ben, more on this
I mean,
AI
Brit,
agents.
yeah, I mean, I don't know about AI agents, but I will say on disproportionate wealth and wealth disparity that I live in a country which is littered with broken up old castles and dilapidated stately homes, which they once were the masters of the universe and had all the world's money. But over time, like you say, you get the wayward children who develop substance abuse issues or gambling problems or whatever else, and eventually that wealth kind of gets distributed back into the economy. Um, but yeah, the AI thing, you're gonna have to think about
At
that
this
one.
point, maybe we could just hope for a better version of the AI that would hack the old version of the AI and steal from it, maybe even distributing it to other AIs like an AI Robin Hood. And there
Yeah.
is someone in the chat talking about, I think it's called Truth Terminal AI and it's Goatsy coin. I don't know the details, but I've heard that an AI made a coin, then other AIs agreed that that coin was valuable, so they all pumped it, and then it went up. And then on that proof of concept, all kinds of humans are now looking at that, trying to find the next coin the AI will pump. Of course, the AI could be fronting and fake pumping and using the humans and all those things. There's a lot of game theory going on there. But it's
Mm.
very, very interesting that that stuff is happening. That's the cutting
Yeah.
edge, absolutely, of this AI
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's mad. It's mad. And we don't know. I mean, it's hilarious as well. Like we can try to smile at it because there's so much amazement happening right now. It's probably the most interesting time to be alive outside of when new lands could be discovered. And even then, you didn't get the news very timely. So we are living in extraordinary times, and maybe it's that somebody builds an agent that collects wealth and redistributes it um, to people. So there's this sort of ideas are going around as well. But yeah, who knows?
I guess, like we were saying before, with the establishment of a Bitcoin-backed economy, like it's just kind of, I mean, I think it's pretty much inevitable, really. It's the best option, or it's the least, it's most unstoppable, and apolitical world reserve currency will have a very beneficial impact when it comes to conflict. So that's one of Bitcoin's properties, which isn't spoken about nearly enough. And
Yeah,
then all those other wild cards like AI, there's not really much you can do. Like you say, it's an inevitable thing which will develop, and we'll just have to learn to live with it.
yeah.
Let's move on to the exit question. We've seen Bitcoin 100, Bitcoin 1000, Bitcoin 100,000. The next 10x would be Bitcoin 1 million. How far away will we see it, and how will we feel when it comes? Josh Shigala, Bitcoin 1 million. Do you think it'll be soon, and how will we feel?
It won't be soon, but generally, I mean, what is soon? It'll be in our lifetime. Yeah,
In our lifetime,
it's
that's pretty good. And how are we going to feel? More of this FOMO, didn't hodl enough, wah, 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 could have gotten $1 million, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you know, it's always going to have that feeling. Like, once it hits 1 million, you think, I should have stacked more sats. I shouldn't have bought that phone. I shouldn't have bought that
Every
burger.
sandwich was 100K. Every
Yeah.
round of beers was a car.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I was literally giving people 5 Bitcoin to test out. Here, have 5 Bitcoin. Like, you can't think like that. What's the point?
I think I used
What's
to
the
give
point?
out point ones, even 0.01. Right now, I'm like, if I could have told someone, hey, there's 10 grand in that wallet that I gave you that one time, they're all lost. They're all lost. I'm the murderer of point ones and 0.01s. You give these people
Yeah,
the
because
accounts, you write down the codes, you write down the
yeah,
keys, you give them the Coinbase, whatever it is, it's always the same. They never value it when you give them the little
for free.
Bitcoins. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, those pizzas.
we wouldn't be where we
Transfer.
were if it weren't for, all the bloodied souls which were this Bitcoin price is sitting upon. It's from all those little giveaways of 5 Bitcoin, one little, all those giveaways of 5 Bitcoin and point 1 Bitcoin and whatever else, and
Yeah,
people
the
reinvesting
forfeits.
back in, yeah, man, people reinvesting back into this great thing, this great project.
Mm.
Yeah, I just want to see more stories of taxi cab drivers and Ubers going, somebody gave me a point one back in the day, now it's 10K. I
Mm,
bought a new car, some kind of thing. But I guess the real kick is if they just keep holding till 100K or something like that.
yeah.
Ben Ark, when will we see $1 million? Will it be within our lifetimes, as Josh says?
I think soon, man. Like I said, like it's the pump in 2021, it was off the back of a much smaller Bitcoin world than what we have now. I kind of feel like 100K is going to become a floor pretty quickly, and million, this year, next year. Like, honestly, the news, the stuff which is happening in the world when it comes to Bitcoin accumulation and these nations talking about accumulating Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, then it's pretty powerful. So very
Yeah.
soon. But the real target is 600 billion per coin. That's what we've won.
Yeah,
600
watch the
billion.
Coin Telegraph will make an article with that headline. Ben
600
Ark,
billion per coin. Yeah.
600 billion a coin.
That's the best thing about the 600 billion. If anyone does, no one knows about the 600 billion meme, you see the stickers every time there's a Bitcoin conference in the city. It'll just say 600 billion, these little orange stickers everywhere. And that's the best part about it, is it just smashes all those stupid, like, MicroStrategy says it's one day going to be worth 1 million a coin. And it's like, no, 600 billion, I'll get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out of my face with your million.
I also think we're in a mania now. Where like Ben's saying 100, 110, 150, 250. These are all within the range now. And whereas, back in the day we used to be like, oh, $300, $1,000. Wow, this is a lot. In the same way now, if it went from 100 to 300, if it went from 300 to 1,000, we're talking 1 million. And I think that if you talk to these new coiners, especially the bankers and the governments and whatever else you may have, they don't think a small time like us. They're not, oh, it's 1,000 up, I'm killing it. They are thinking in hundreds of thousands. They are thinking of a thing that rolls. And they're also thinking of great ways to get you to give up your Bitcoin. So there's all kinds of people out there right now getting you trying to spend it and sell it and lose it. And if you do spend it, you can always rebuy. You can just, spend 100, buy 100. But Josh, more on this?
Yeah, it's always hard. The inner human has an inner greed, and it's about, oh, have we reached the top? I want to sell the top this time so that I can buy the bottom. And, at the end of the day, it all comes down to cost averaging. Buy a little bit every week on a Tuesday, or every month on a Tuesday, or whatever it is. And as it starts to reach these all-time highs, sell a little bit every Tuesday. And that's, even though no one ever does it, they all say it. It's so much. It's generally what happens with everyone I know, I tell them that and all, they go, yeah. I just want all in right now, or I want all out right now. It's either all in, all out, because that's maximum profit, right? If you're right in that moment. But generally speaking, the best strategy is to average in, average out, or just average in and never average out, and just stay and ride out the bull bear markets and just keep averaging in. If you've got a day job or an income. Yeah.
And if you can also sell small amounts, like sell 10% or 1% instead of selling 100%, also just selling enough to cover your bills,
Yeah.
sell a little each month and have a reserve of cash, have, safety nets. But it's very hard. But let's move on. I think it'll go to $1 million. Yes. I think it'll go in our lifetimes. I think it'll go soon. I would agree with more Ben. I think 3 to 5 years. I think it's not very far off. And when it goes to $1 million, if we're still doing this show, or if we do a special episode for the $1 million, I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. Now that we're in this range, it doesn't matter. We're in another range. The people who just joined, so and so owns Monte Carlo Casino, so and so owns the Rolls-Royce factory, and they expect returns. They want 10x on their money. They didn't buy it at $1 million to sell it at 5 million. They bought it at $1 million to sell it at 10 million. Then we'll see 100 million, and then we'll be talking about how we bought beers instead of buying a house 20 years ago, crap like that. But we just got to see how it turns out. Let's move on to issue 2, dunking on finance guys. Check out this from CNBC as the anchor tells the Bitcoin skeptic, "You've missed it."
I've been a skeptic over the years because of some of the things that you just quoted Powell on in terms of its store of value. It's not a currency equivalent, right? It is a speculative asset. And we say be very, very careful. Be very careful. We don't have it in client assets right now. There are ways to play it through the exchanges. But certainly it's getting the attention, and we're getting lots of questions about it.
40% since the election, but 60% ARR for 15 years or 10 or 15 years. So, I mean, you've missed it.
We have missed that.
Yeah.
We did miss the U.S. equity market, though, so we got that, which has been...
Let's try one more time here, just for posterity.
I mean, you've missed it.
We
for 10 or 15 years. So,
You're right.
since the election, but 60% ARR for 15 years or 10 or 15 years. So, I mean, you've missed it.
We have missed that.
Yeah.
We did miss the U.S. equity markets.
You've missed it. Yes, we have missed it. Yeah. We've predicted this for years. Now it is here. The finance people have bowed to our greatness. You, me, Josh, everybody else out there, Hal, Finney, everybody that talked about Bitcoin, everybody that owned Bitcoin, every libertarian who had Bitcoin, Derek J., Davi Barker, Andreas Antonopoulos, Roger Ver, all these people, Trace Mayer, they were all right. All the finance people were wrong. All of their magazines were wrong. All of their TV shows were wrong. All of their books were wrong. All of their investments were wrong. All of their special investment clubs you paid money to join that they advertise horribly on CNBC were wrong. You know who was right? A bunch of idiots on the internet, people with YouTube channels, people with Twitter accounts, people on the Bitcoin Talk forums, nerdy people, cypherpunk people, libertarian people. They were right. These finance people were wrong, and now they've publicly admitted it, and we can drag them through the streets. Ben, Ark, what do you think about these finance people who were wrong about Bitcoin?
Yeah, for naysayers of Bitcoin, they've just been proved massive fools. Like it's a reputation killer for all these financial thought leaders who gave Bitcoin so much shit for so long. And they tried to naysay it as long as they could, because obviously they've taken a stance and they need to keep that stance that this thing's a Ponzi, this thing's this, it's for dark markets, it's silly hacker geeky internet money. I hate that. I hate it when like great technology is fobbed off as just some geeky tool, and it's like, no, you're talking about very bright, dedicated engineers pouring their time and love into something and trying to build a tool which could benefit humanity. It's not just some geeky internet money tool. But yeah, it's a reputation killer for NASA. I mean, how can you ever trust their advice if for, like you say, for 10 years. It's not just like it's gone from 0 to 100K. Like it's done this a whole bunch of times. There's been cycles where it's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone up, it's gone down. And we've had these like incredible wealth generating cycles for a lot of people. And for them just to really miss the ball on it repeatedly, when it's so obviously a good idea, and there's such a huge wealth of information out there on the internet, books, whatever, to explain why it's a good idea and why it's probably going to carry on going up in value and all the different things you can use the Bitcoin for. Yeah, it's a reputation killer. And again, it's another very bullish property of where we are at the moment, is that we have those clear skies, and like me and Josh were saying before, there's the naysayers are stepping out of the way, or they're melting away. They're being proved to be idiots, or they're having to flip and say they actually like Bitcoin.
But then they do what they always do and say, we've missed it.
Yeah.
You know, the whole concept of missing it is stupid. I mean, yeah, you missed the mega gains, but like 600 billion.
Exactly. Fools.
But yeah.
And you heard them. They expect you to keep listening to them. They expect to continue to be finance experts, even though they missed this big thing. The guy's just like, oh, well, we missed equities too. I mean, he's just rolling right over. He's like, I'm still CEO. I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to give everyone back their money. What about the kid that came in and was like, hey, mom and dad should invest in Bitcoin? And this financial guy with all his degrees says, no, that's a stupid investment. That's drug money. And again, their job is to look for cool new things for people to invest in. Solar panel, environmental stuff, a new way of making fuel. They're supposed to be reading these cool books and saying, hey, you know, we could make money on building a railroad from there to there. We could make money on making ice faster, whatever it is. All these kind of technology things. That's not my job. My job, if anything, as William Gibson described in the book Pattern Recognition, is a cool hunter. I'm out there on the internet looking for things that are cool. I like new cameras, iPhones, you know, new laptops, whatever it is, cool stuff. And I find this Bitcoin, I say, this is cool. This is cool new technology. This is like a faster modem. This is like connecting to the internet instead of a BBS. This is cool. And I say, all my friends, all my family, I have found cool. My job is to look for cool, and I have found it. And what do they say? They say, I don't have $100 to invest in your cool. And now the cool is worth $100,000, and all these finance guys were wrong. And sadly, most of my friends were wrong who never invested. And like Ben says, this isn't the first time we've done this. You know, we went from, 100 to 1,000. We went from 1,000 to 10,000. We went back down. Oh no. We went to, this and that. We keep doing this. We keep going through these cycles. And again, I have this friend who's like, I gave him a little bit of Bitcoin. He's like, he's in a rush to sell it now. He's like, I've got to sell that while it's high. And I say, no, sell everything else that you own in fiat. Sell all your stocks, sell all your stupid savings accounts. Keep some for safety. Let's be reasonable. But if you have investment money and not financial advice, it should probably be in Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
It should probably be in the coolest tech that you can find that is investable. Go ahead, Josh. I talked a lot.
No, it's very good points. Looking for cool is spot on. Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. That's great.
Well, we have
Looking
more
for
dunking.
cool.
We have more dunking on the finance guys. We all have FOMO. Wall Street's biggest market maker just flipped Bitcoin price bullish. As he says here, Ken Griffin. This is one of the guys that bet against GameStop. I just watched the GameStop movie again recently. I love Dumb Money. It's a great film. He says, of course, I wish I bought something that trades at 100 times the price it traded at a few years ago. That's kind of like the point of making money. He says the billionaire founder of market maker Citadel Securities and its sister hedge fund said, we all have FOMO, fear of missing out. It's just universal. Part of human society. So again, they missed out. They missed the boat. Psychology. They're gone. Ben Ark is back with his logo. Ben, what do you think? More dunking on the finance guys? Do we have anything else to say? And not financial advice. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean there is truth in the fact that it does erode the power of some of these, like the USD. And I think we've got maybe some topics in we're going to cover some of the topics where we can talk about this. So it is there to attack the USD, and that's interesting as to when people will kind of wake up to that, and what impact that'll have on the US embracing Bitcoin. But he was right
Well,
about that.
that's definitely the
Yeah.
new nonsense. They're trying to say that Bitcoin is only digital gold, and this, sadly, I don't want to talk about it, but leads into that ridiculous reserve idea. If Bitcoin is just digital gold, sure, it's fine to have a reserve of it. But if Bitcoin is a competing currency to the dollar, then you are bringing the snake inside the house, right? And I'm saying, for Josh, before you get into it, everyone should have a Bitcoin strategic Bitcoin reserve. Everyone except the people who control and make the dollar. Because if the people who control and make the dollar are betting against their own product, they're sending a mixed market signal that says, you need to be betting against the dollar too. We run this thing and we're betting against it. Imagine how much you mentioned Saudi Arabia, imagine how much you, Saudi Arabia, or every other country should be betting against the dollar now. And that's a horrible market signal to send unless it's some kind of a secret plot and you want to destroy the dollar and cause chaos. And that's just going to cause chaos. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah. Um, yeah, the thing is, like, in the chat, they're mentioning Peter Schiff. I agree. It's sad to see, because I used to love listening to Peter Schiff in 2008, before Bitcoin, 2008, 2007, 2000, and he was spot on. And his father, Adam Schiff, very, very good lessons. But what I get upset about with Peter is he's always been just so righteous in his viewpoint against Bitcoin in a very strong sense. And that has caused his countless followers who were right there watching this beast. And I hope most of them didn't listen to him, not actually ride this train along. Now, saying that, I don't think Peter is that dumb. I think this was a talking point, because when he used to tweet this sort of thing, everybody retweeted it. So it was almost like a marketing cost. Being anti-Bitcoin was his thing, because he would be invited on shows, he would be invited on, all his tweets would be retweeted. All of us Bitcoiners would be talking about him. And meanwhile, I have seen tweets where his son is stacking sats. And so family-wise, his son's buying. And it used to be the point where when Peter Schiff tweeted, believe it or not, it actually moved the markets back in the day. So Peter Schiff would call it dirt and FUD it. Bitcoin will go down. And I think he was his family, at least someone in his family, was stacking sats in that moment. So the idea that, he's some idiot, I don't buy it. I think he was, that's his talking point. That's his marketing thing. I do believe he doesn't like it as much as gold at all. But he can't be this dumb. Like, he just can't be.
In the same vein, Jamie Dimon of Chase Manhattan Bank was always trashing Bitcoin. Meanwhile, his daughter was said to be buying it. So that could
Yeah.
be a thing. But
Right.
I just hate the idea of someone, you're out there promoting something, like you get into this hate thing. You're like, I hate Bitcoin. So you're going to go after it and you attack
Yeah.
every day. And it's really simple. You're against Bitcoin. Whatever happens, you're against it. It's accepted somewhere. You're against that. It goes up. You're against it. It goes down. You're in favor of that. All these things. But to go out there disingenuously and to own it secretly, or to have some interest in it secretly, it's just so disappointing as a human being. We don't know that that's true about Peter Schiff, just to pause it here. But on
Yeah.
the same way, I'm pretty happy to be in a point where I've promoted something that I think was positive for people. I think most people who invested in Bitcoin or read about it more, which was mainly my advice, probably did pretty well. It would be a bummer if I was out here promoted something, Johnny's altcoin, and Johnny's altcoin went through the floor, and I kept promoting it and it kept going through the floor, and it was a disaster. So it is, I think, a lot better psychologically, emotionally, to be on the right side of this. We can't control that. I didn't know that Bitcoin was going to 100K or that it's going up or down. I think what I think. But yeah, it is worse. And I mean, I guess you get trapped into it at a certain point. Hating Bitcoin is his thing. Like, and he
Yeah.
is making money from that. He's maybe writing books about it. He's doing appearances. He's raising his Q rating or whatever it is, getting his numbers up. So there must be some kind of profit in that that would offweigh or outset this bad feeling of not giving the right advice or not giving your best advice.
It's
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
I mean, it's like,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, it's also like hating the internet, in the late 90s. Like, yeah, you can hate the internet in the late 90s, but to then continue to hate it for the next however many years because that's your stance and you hate the internet doesn't make sense because the internet in the late 90s compared to the internet we had in the 2000s is completely different because it changes, it evolves, the technology is built upon. And it's the same with Bitcoin. It's not like just hating gold or just hating something which isn't changing all the time. So anyone who takes a stance on Bitcoin, and maybe they've got some good argument against it, maybe years ago, the transaction throughput and that sort of stuff made sense. It won't work as money because it can only do 4 transactions a second. Well, then we get the Lightning Network, and then we get this, and we get that, and we get all these technologies and tools and things being built on Bitcoin. So every 3-4 years, if you've taken a stance, you do have to just readdress it. But I think, like Josh was saying, for Peter Schiff, it was one of his biggest talking points was every time Bitcoin had a price dump, him jumping on all those shows, and it would sell books. It's his professional thing. He's the Bitcoin hater guy, and he tweets stuff out, and it can manipulate markets. And but again, I mean, I imagine for the past few years he's been kept up at night, crossing his fingers, hoping that something catastrophic happens to Bitcoin, so he's proved right, and seeing that not happening. And I mean, I don't know what he's saying about the current pump over 100K. I mean, I haven't seen, but it's probably worth checking out his Twitter and seeing what he's saying these days.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's exactly how he makes the money, Ben, is that it's worth checking out. We know what he says. He's going to say the same negative thing, that it's a false pump and it's manipulated by this and it won't
it'll
last.
never
and
reach 1 million.
yeah, all those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he has to.
Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, I'm for a lesser extent, I see it with AI as well. People are literally saying, it's a fad. It's just a fad. Don't worry about it. It won't take all the jobs. It's a fad. And you just look at them and you just think, really, dude? It's just a fad? Have you what? How can you use the tools that is so amazing that it fools people into thinking there's consciousness behind it, and say it's a fad? I mean, it's unbelievable. And these are the same sort of people that calling
Well,
Bitcoin fad.
remember, Josh, they won't use the tool. They won't use ChatGPT directly. They won't use Bitcoin directly. They'll use someone's interpretation of it. Someone used ChatGPT and it told them to murder people. Someone used Bitcoin and they used it for drug money. They'll find a corner to attack it from. But I agree with you. When I look at it and I think about the AI, I imagine a box coming down. I imagine unfolding in a multitude of directions. So many different things that it can do, so many areas that it can disrupt. In the same way, when I saw Bitcoin and I read more about it, I learned more, and I watched Andreas videos and all these things, it unfolds in so many directions, has so many possibilities. I don't ever just see it as one thing. And as a technologist, I have that ability to see that, where I don't just pocket something and say, oh, it's gold, or oh, it's money, or oh, the AI, does nice math, or it converts units really well, Fahrenheit to Celsius. It's so much more. And
It's so
I
much
do think
more.
they're blind to that as well, Josh.
And I think they tied together perfectly, like blockchains and Bitcoin and AI. They work really well together. Not only because I was on an AI panel yesterday and I talked about this. It's not only that AI can't legally get a bank account with KYC and stuff. It could do it because it could just fake a KYC and stuff, but legally it can't. And so what its native thing is to use crypto. Yeah. Okay. So that's the basics. But also what will happen is the deep fakes and all of this stuff that AI can produce. I think anyone in a prominent space will have to start, and I've been saying this on the show for years, anyone that's prominent will have to start hashing their life, a video stream, and using the hashes of the video stream of their life into a blockchain, and then people that are more prominent will have to be doing more iterations. So instead of a hash every 10 minutes, maybe a hash every 30 seconds, because someone will come out with an image and say, look, and extort money. And it's happened to big CEOs, being extorted for $1 million, and they pay it because they've got a deep fake image. And so, in the future, you might have politicians and celebs, or powerful people having to hash their life into blockchains consistently, so they can go to a court and say, no, look here, this is where I was, and rehash the image and go, look, this is where I was at that time that this allegedly happened. So blockchains, AI have a very tight bond in multiple ways, and we're heading to a brave new world very quickly, and it's a tsunami that's coming so fast that people don't understand. And Bitcoiners kind of understand it because they're a bit more of a grasp of exponentiality. But the swaths of jobs that will just be wiped out in an instant, not like when the photocopier got released, and there's warehouses of teenagers all retyping documents for people, suddenly gone. That job's just gone. But AI is far worse because it's not just one technology. AI, like Thomas said, can be everything. Can be everything that is a thought job, and then with the robots, I just saw Elon's new robot being able to catch a ball with this amazingly dexterous hand. Like, we're heading into a place where we don't know what's happening. So stack now, make money now,
I would say
because
that
we
as
don't
well,
know
like
how people will make money.
going back to before what we were saying about Bitcoin and just having these technologies to fix a bunch of problems. Like the past century it's fairly remarkable that humans haven't destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons. And I kind of feel that, AI is probably the answer to those sorts of problems as well. Like maybe we shouldn't have geriatric, hyper paranoid world leaders making decisions and with their finger like hovering over the nuclear weapon button. And it's a very hard thing for humans to kind of wrap their heads around, but just because the amount of data points, inputs into artificial intelligence, more and more I'm leaning onto, asking AI stuff when I need to find out something, and then trusting that they're telling me the truth because they've processed so much more data than a human could process on that thing which I'm asking them. And I do think that when it comes to not the governance of humans, but um, government itself is just a mechanism, an apparatus so we can all carry on doing our lives. And I'm sure we could minimize that and then have a lot of the decision making just in the hands of some AI, which is less likely to get hyper paranoid and press that nuclear weapon. But who knows? But I have high hopes for AI. I don't think that it will kill us all. I think it's probably just going to try and improve humanity, and it's going to do a good job doing it. And absolutely, like public key cryptography, and normal people are just going to have to get used to private key, public key, and using the laws of the universe for proof of human.
Well, it's interesting, Ben. I read an article in The Atlantic recently where they talked about how people are getting the wrong message from dystopian movies. There are movies that are clearly anti-dystopia, and people watching them and coming out of them being pro-dystopia. And I think back, like you were saying, to of course, the classic original movie, War Games from the 1980s, where the computer is put in charge of the nuclear weapons, and very quickly, with the example of tic-tac-toe, and nuclear war, the computer thermonuclear war, the computer realizes that the only way to win is not to play the game. Ironically, Ronald Reagan watches this, gets nervous about computer hacking also gets admiration of that beautiful set that they built and builds one of those for NORAD and starts to protect things for computer hacking. But there is that other movie about the nuclear weapons at the end of the world, not Beaches, but something like that. And it was on television and it freaked everybody out. And that one worked. That one snapped Reagan out of it. But we don't seem to be able to reach people with this kind of art anymore. And so we drift closer and closer to the edge and everyone thinks it's kind of funny. Like Josh was saying, though, there's another movie, the Robin Williams movie. I think it's called Final Cut. And everyone wears these little necklaces around their neck and it records your entire life, but it records it from your memories. So it's a little uncertain if it's the real thing or if it's like Rashomon, multiple people seeing a murder from different angles. And maybe one thought it was this and one thought it was that. So we get all this new data, but we get further and further away from the truth, even though we have all this data. And to just go back and dunk on the financial guys again, I think it was hubris. I think that they didn't believe it could happen to their industry. From my perspective as an internet computer person, we got the internet going. We pretty much crushed, I would say, kind of pornography magazines, pornography videotapes. Those were one of the first industries affected by the internet, and no one really noticed because no one gives an F about those things, right? But once they were gone, then they started to crush movies, music, streaming, all these kind of things, and better technology tools, things like the MP3 compression algorithms, contributed to this crushing. Then it was time to crush the finance industry, and it was really clear for a decade that Bitcoin was that thing. That the way it had been written, the way the open source had been designed, the way the different players were, even the people that were in charge of it at the time, anytime you want to come into it, other than that early period with Satoshi, there's a whole team of open source programmers behind Bitcoin, which if you look at all the other open source successes, Linux, other things like that, a team of people on the internet drawn from many corners of the globe turns out to be the best team. And that's the team that crushed the music industry, crushed the movie industry, and then, as we've seen now, crushed or is crushing the financial industry. And to go a step further, I think that AI is kind of the next generation of that. Like Josh was saying, it crushes all industries. So there will be new jobs. There will be things on the other side of that. But getting through that is going to be kind of messy. And it's really unfortunate. You would probably want something like a social safety net during that time. You would want government services. You'd want a backup plan. And I think they're going to destroy that. So we'll go through it without it. And we'll see how many people fall through the non-existent net.
We're lucky enough to have a grasp of public key crypto. And I honestly think that, because I mean, they are the tools of liberation on the internet. You understand public key crypto, you can control your own data, you can control your own money, you can control, like we say with NASA, you can control your own social network stuff. And then you can move data around and actually own it and control it and protect it yourself. And those tools exist because of, they're popularized because, they exist because of people working for three-letter agencies or whatever, but they've been popularized, and the tools for normal people to be able to wield those tools have been made possible by cypherpunks, free and open source developers, Bitcoin. And it's like, what can we build? I get very excited when I think about an internet where the users of the internet have access to the tool of public key crypto, because it's like you can have the internet which we originally promised, one in which people freely share information, and you have this data revolution which isn't captured by corporations and countries. So it's a good time, good time to be alive.
Well, and public key crypto, that was one of the first tools, Ben, where you knew you were getting into something real because you had to type in a whole thing about how you wouldn't export it, at least in the United States. They had all these rules. They're like, when you decipher this, when you install PGP, you are installing a high-grade encryption platform. You cannot export, blah, blah. You had to type in yes, I will not export this. That's how you know you're doing something real. And in the same way, when anyone encrypts anything today, they're creating a huge hassle for all kinds of other people who don't want that to be encrypted, that want it to be open. Let's move on to the exit question. Hal Finney, who I think should be made a saint of Bitcoin, so we're just going to call him Saint Hal Finney, St. Hal Finney's epic Bitcoin price prediction from 2009 is $10 million per Bitcoin possible. Josh Shigala, $10 million per Bitcoin.
Oh, these headlines are no 600 billion is that's the prediction. Of course it is. It's about the destruction of if the dollar keeps getting printed, anything's possible. It's such a strange conversational piece, but it's always there. 600 billion. Yep, going there.
We also have to look at the scale. We haven't even passed gold yet for market cap, so we could still pass gold. There's a lot of room to grow. Ben Ark, what do you think? Is $10 million per coin possible?
You see, the reason it's 600 billion per coin as well is that is the death rattle. That is when all the fiat shit just doesn't make sense to use, and it's just just bits of paper. So yeah, that's 600 billion is the last valuation you can have between Bitcoin and USD, because then after that we're just using Bitcoin and we've given up on the USD stuff. So that's where we're targeting 600 billion a coin.
What would be the market cap of Bitcoin at that
But it's the
price?
market cap of it's the dollars there. It's the hyperinflation, because everyone's using Bitcoin and they're trying to hyperinflate the dollar, and then the last death rattle is 600 billion until it just goes poof, and no one uses
But
the dollar
the
anymore
trick
across all
then
of
there
Bitcoin.
is they'll charge you capital gains because they inflated the currency and said it's worth more now, but it's not worth more.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
just
they
your
will.
currency's gone down, but they'll charge you capital gains because they've smashed their printer.
I kind of feel that like with skin in the game, like, because I mean, obviously, like the stuff we work on is Bitcoin being used for money in Allen-bits with the Lightning stuff, and
As currency.
yeah, it's currency. Yeah, sorry, it's currency. So I think that's going to happen. More and more countries like El Salvador will just allow people to use Bitcoin as currency, particularly if they have skin in the game and they have reserves in it as well. And then some of those capital gains laws won't apply as much as they do. But what was the question again? Sorry,
Will the price
Thomas.
of Bitcoin rise to $10 million a coin?
Yeah, I think it's probably worth $10 million a coin now. We're 1,000 times better than we were when we were at $10,000. So yeah, 10 million a coin. Quick math.
Well, I agree with TPP in the chat. He says Fiat has no bottom. And Starship says $10 million in the late 2030s. Late 2030s. So we have to see how it goes. I've just found the magic 8 ball, the source of all truth in this and any other universe or generation. And I'm asking you, Josh Shigala, the price of Bitcoin's risen. It's around $101,000. But will it be higher or lower this time next week?
I really want to see it build a nice floor at 100K. Like if it just keeps cruising up to 130 or something like that, then it sucks because this bull market will be over soon. What you want to do is you want to have big rockets and then chill for a while. I'd like to see it hovering around for about like 2 months on 100K. And then oh wow, this means 150K is still coming in this bull market. And then once it reaches 150K, hover around there. And it's these round numbers that humans love. Machines, not so much. They'll just take whatever. But humans love the round numbers. So 100K, I hope that it sits there. But in terms of the short term, the next week, I think we'll see higher next week. Yeah.
Baxter in the chat says he can't wait for $1 million so that we'll have Austin Powers memes. But I think
Yeah.
by the time we reach $101 million, no one might know who Austin Powers is. I feel like it's a deterring graph of Austin Powers versus the price of Bitcoin rising. And when they meet, I wonder how many people will still know who Austin Powers is. So we'll have to hold out for that. And let's see, let's go to Ben. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week?
Yeah, I think you're on something there, Josh. I think it's going to bob about 100K for a bit. 215 or whatever is the target. It's been the target I've said on this show for 3-4 years now on the cycle of us going up. But yeah, I think once we get that floor of 100K, I mean, it's supply and demand, scarcity. You got these big ETFs sucking up all the Bitcoin. You got MicroStrategy sucking up all the Bitcoin. You got these countries building strategic reserves in Bitcoin. You got all the burnt coins from people giving them away and foolish people not holding on to those wallets. Um, the world is slowly starting to wake up to how scarce these things actually are. So, yeah, I think we're
Oh,
probably going to be at a
especially when the
similar price.
ETFs go, we need a
Yeah,
million Bitcoin now. And the
yeah,
people go, well, you can't get them.
yeah. Whoosh. Yeah, 600 billion.
As they say in the chat, 600 billion, but maybe not next week. Let's ask the Magic 8 Ball, will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? You may rely on it. You may rely on it. So the ball has spoken. Check out worldcryptonetwork.com, which now has a fixed security certificate. Thanks to Ben Ark and another guy in Twitter for helping me out and prodding me to get it fixed. It turned out the problem was money. You just had to put in more money. Apparently, we use a software package called Plesk that allows you to act as a control panel for your web page or something like that. And Plesk didn't renew the certificate because we didn't pay Plex, because Plesk just decided that they should be paid recently and changed the way their software works. So interesting stuff, but not really. What it really means is now you can go to worldcryptonetwork.com and check out all our videos. We've got topics, we've got shows, we've got hosts and guests, we've got playlists. Check them out. You could click right here. Here's Blake Anderson. Look at all the shows we have with Blake right there at your fingertips at worldcryptonetwork.com. Now with the correct security certificate. Oh, yeah.
And 11 years and 1 day.
There it is,
Since the
11
first
years and
video.
1 day. Wow, pretty good. And moving on to issue 3. Mark Cuban says crypto hasn't had its Instagram moment despite Bitcoin reaching all-time highs. And Mark Cuban, I'm sure he's a really nice man. I watched Shark Tank. It's cool. One time I went to the Dallas Mavericks game, and it was nice. But he doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, and I wish people would stop asking him about it. Just 4 years ago, in 2009, 5 years ago, Mark Cuban picked bananas over Bitcoin, saying in a video that he would rather have bananas than Bitcoin, warning potential Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investors that digital tokens have no intrinsic value. Why are we stuck with these commentators who trashed on Bitcoin, telling us how good Bitcoin is, or these political people like Anthony Scaramucci, who ran a PR agency and worked for Trump for like 9 days, which we call a Scaramucci now? Why is the mainstream media continuing to listen to non-Bitcoin people who have no track record, who tell them the same nonsense at all the wrong times? Josh Shigala, why are we stuck with these people?
Yeah, it's amazing. And then, there's people like us who've been saying really, even if I say it myself, but Thomas, you've said some wise words along your time. Ben Ark, you've said some extraordinarily wise words along the time. And so why aren't you guys being invited on, CNBC and all of this thing? It just is what it is. And the thing that irks me the most is going to these conferences and seeing these people get pulled out and paraded like heroes in front of all these people, even though they've made such terrible calls all the way. It's because Cuban sold one company at a luck back in the day to Yahoo, and now he's just some absolute genius. I don't know how many of his investments in Shark Tank have done well. Not sure, but not as well as $5.7 billion that he sold to Yahoo. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't. Mark Cuban annoys me. He just his face just annoys me.
Now,
But
I
I
get
probably
that.
annoy
I get
people as
that.
well.
Something happened and we lost our champion, right? Andreas Antonopoulos is great at speaking. He's great at explaining Bitcoin. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He stopped taking the interviews from the TV people, but they could have found someone else, even Tone or Jimmy. They have a great grasp on Bitcoin. They've been in it a long time, and they've been correct. And they're Bitcoin people. I trust those people. Instead, we have people like Michael Saylor, who was a dot-commer and a party animal, and everyone's forgotten. He just starts a company, they start buying Bitcoin, and now on the virtue of Michael Saylor having the good idea to buy Bitcoin, he's now an expert, and he goes on TV and tells everyone else to buy Bitcoin, which is great, but maybe we could have someone with actual virtue who acted on it when it was nothing, someone like Trace Mayer or Roger Ver, legendary investors who, when Bitcoin was nothing, when it was truly a risk, they put their money in and they put their time in, volunteering, spreading the word. Roger, Trace, Andreas, all these other heroes from the past. Couldn't we just elevate one of them for CNBC, not have the Mark Cuban article, not have the Scaramucci's, etc.? Ben Ark, what do you think about these strange announcers that we have?
Yeah, I mean they're totally just rehashing all the stuff we've been saying for years, and they come in late, and all our arguments are refined, and they just pluck them out, say them, and then they're lauded for being these forward thinking. And like you say, whether they're new, where were these people before, and where was Michael Saylor 4 years ago? Trace Mayer was great. He would have been great. Get him on these shows. Very eloquent.
Voorhees.
Andreas.
TZP just said it.
What was that?
Voorhees as well, yeah.
Oh yeah, Eric Voorhees. Yeah, God, yeah, Eric Voorhees. Josh, you man. I mean, like, crikey, you set up that Voltoro, and it's such an important platform, and you did so much good work, and you're a very professional dude.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
mean, we do have a lot of people within our little world, Trace Mayer, Andreas, you, Josh, and Eric Voorhees, people like that who would be great on these shows, and I've no idea why they pluck. I mean, it's probably just I don't know, just Washington circles, people from old families. Isn't Mark Cuban, isn't he the guy who put radio on the internet, which they took the piss out of in Silicon Valley? Isn't it that guy? He's like a parody of that guy.
Yeah, that's pretty much Mark Cuban. It's not exactly radio like Napster. It was broadcast.com,
Broadcast.com, yeah.
and allegedly he was borrowing college basketball games, which may or may not have been copyrighted, and broadcasting them. And Yahoo bought them for tons of money. Then his other key move, in addition to selling to Yahoo, who never did anything with their technology or their name, eventually just pointing broadcast.com to Yahoo, is that Mark Cuban sold Yahoo stock before it crashed. And that's not a special ability. That's not really like a chart reading thing. That was more of kind of a lucky timing, a good feeling, or a sensibility. Maybe he had a sensibility. He said, this is enough money. Whereas other people who got money from his company were like, let's wait a few more weeks. And they were involved in the Yahoo crash. I forget the number now. I think it was about $180 to $10, something like that. It was a generational, and it was the entire .com industry that crashed. Mark Cuban got out before that happened.
These like .com gazillionaires who cashed out on their .com companies, they're shitcoiners. Like it's like a shitcoin cycle. They just build something which isn't sustainable. They hop on the momentum and excitement people have around the internet. They make some product which clearly probably isn't that the internet's not ready for it, and then they shitcoined and sold their .com. So when anyone's made money in the .com era, the Michael Saylors, whoever else, I don't really give them much credit for it, because it's just I don't think it's particularly hard if you're in the right place at the right time at that time. But
that's why it was always so weird to see Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, which is about investors and startups and building a business, really gutting it out there, right? I mean, I'm sure he built broadcast.com, but the selling of it, the selling of the Yahoo stock, these are two kind of lucky things that fell on him. These aren't exactly like Bill Gates building Microsoft, customer at a time, Steve Jobs building Apple, a customer at a time, out of nothing. In the same way that when they had The Apprentice show in the United States, they pretended that this person was a really powerful investor, when in reality he'd bankrupted casinos, he'd bankrupted his own real estate empire, this television lens that we put on things. And I think it's part of that lens that is still on Mark Cuban, because we've seen him now 100 times on Shark Tank say, oh, your business is a good idea, your business is a bad idea. He could be right, he could be wrong. but because of television, he has this authority to him.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they need better talking heads. But I mean, arguably, broadcast television is less uh impactful than it used to be, and there's all these people on the internet now who are good at talking about things like Bitcoin. It is a shame that people like Andreas and Trace and that they burnt out, and they were around too early to get that big audience. But yeah, thank God for their service.
It also seems like Coinbase and some of the more predictable places in the market haven't exactly gone for your libertarian cypherpunk firebrands. They would rather get some nice talking people who want to read the price and say that the price is going up or down, and that if you keep your coverage in that band of just price coverage and you kind of mimic what the financial industry has done, which is this kind of thoughtless, brainless price coverage, which is absolutely worthless. I can tell you today, Apple stock is great. You should have bought yesterday. That's the most worthless advice. That hurts you every time. I very rarely can say in the future X and X stock will be good, because that's a huge risk. But that's what people want in that market, is they want that easy information, and they also like that after information, that information that's totally worthless. Josh, you have more on this?
Nope. No,
All
sorry.
right, we'll go on to the next issue in this show that is all good news and nothing but gloating. Issue 4, MicroStrategy's Bitcoin bet has made its stock a big winner. Will other companies soon follow suit? And we've talked about MicroStrategy for a long time, how it's the same idea as the Ponzi scheme Pirate at 40, where the guy said, you give me money, I will buy Bitcoin with that money. It's just that Michael Saylor's at a whole nother level and presumably much more financially responsible than the Pirate at 40 scam. However, he and his company did put their money where their mouth is. They did put their money in Bitcoin over and over again, borrowing billions of dollars of other people's money to build their huge stack, and now they are huge winners. We also have El Salvador, whose president is triumphant after his bet on Bitcoin comes true. Same thing, other people's money. He took a lot of it, put it into Bitcoin. The price went down. They all wrote articles negative of El Salvador, mocking his choice, saying it was a disaster. And now, as we have predicted and others have predicted, they held long enough to be a success. MicroStrategy, El Salvador, like them, hate them, whatever. Huge successes. Josh Shigala, what do you think about the huge success of MicroStrategy and the huge success of El Salvador?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with other companies doing, following Michael Saylor's strategy is that if they don't fundamentally understand Bitcoin, like, arguably Saylor does, he truly believes the Bitcoin thing, I think, they will let go of their, like Musk did with Tesla. The board, I don't know if it was Musk, but the board voted against holding it and selling back when it was down. Now, there was a time when Saylor could have been wiped out. It was very close, because he had long positions, and it just kept on going down and down and down, and he would have had to cover those long positions. And so he was very lucky that it didn't drop another $100 or something like that. It was close to the line. But what I fear is if he was to go and convince the board of, because never just one person, Elon plays the dictator of everything in his companies. Like he invents, like he's given credit for inventing everything. But at the end of the day, he hires very, very talented people. But he's also got a board around him wherever he goes. And so if Saylor was to convince Microsoft to start to stock, or any of these other companies to do the similar thing, to hold on their balance sheet, I think what would happen is that once you get these all-time highs, you would see the board voting to dump them now, either now or do the human thing, like dump it at their all-time at their lows, when there's like, oh, if it loses any more, just get rid of it now. It's a losing asset. So whereas you really, if you're going to do that strategy, you have to be a true a believer, or not a believer, but you have to understand the fundamental value of Bitcoin. And a lot of people still don't understand the fundamental value. They'll buy it because they see CNBC now talking about it and all the news organizations talking about it because it's all-time highs. But they won't buy it because they truly fundamentally don't get it. They don't get it. Why is this? I don't know, but it's going high, and every time it goes down, it comes back up. So, you know, we got to buy some. And Saylor, look at his company's worth, so we got to do it. But what that does is set you up for paper hands holding this stuff, and these paper hands will burn at the drop of a hat. So, yeah, I don't think other companies, like, people need that base level of understanding to actually pull off what Michael Saylor has done with MicroStrategy.
Well, and you mentioned Tesla, Josh. There's a reason we're not talking about Tesla here, is because Tesla, much like Germany, sold their Bitcoin. And now we can say definitively they had this much, they've lost this much between now and then. And there was even a point when they were holding their Bitcoin where Tesla was making more from their hold, from their hodl on Bitcoin than they were from making cars. And I think this is a huge embarrassment to them as a company, an embarrassment to all the engineers, especially the marketing and finance people who set up the whole idea of the company, who are out there selling stock based upon the idea of investing in this electric car company is better than investing in Bitcoin. When reality, if we look at what right now is the most successful company in the history of companies, it's MicroStrategy doing nothing, buying Bitcoin, holding it. If you introduce this idea into a company like Microsoft, why bother making another software update when you make more from holding Bitcoin and not paying the engineers, which is a disaster for all companies and all basically ideas, in the same way that ChatGPT could wipe out all ideas and make everyone lazy and stupid. Running a company is kind of dumb compared to holding Bitcoin. Which is kind of another, like the monkey's paw I was talking about earlier, the psychological problem where you're saying, oh, we're making more money than we've ever made before, but then you have to fire everyone that ever did anything before, because why do you need them now? Ben
Yeah.
Ark, what do you think about El Salvador's success and the success of MicroStrategy, whose MicroStrategy might destroy every other company and every other idea, and we'll end up like a Idiocracy where Brondo and the computer did that auto layoff thing. We're all fired.
I mean, I got a special place in my heart for El Salvador because I went there when they first opened up, and it was rough. Guys with guns everywhere, not safe, dangerous, normal people terrified. And then by opening up to this new industry, which had a lot of wealth in it, and a lot of people who wanted somewhere to set up shop, set up businesses, in a favorable environment, they brought in a lot of investment. I know a lot of businesses which set up there, and more Bitcoin businesses are establishing themselves there, and as well as businesses, you also got Bitcoiners as well who've made good money, and they're now moving there. And there's been huge growth, like huge growth. If you look at El Zante, it was just a sleepy little beach town, shacks, like corrugate iron huts, and now it's got massive, beautiful hotels, which kind of loses something in this way, but in a way. But I'm very happy because I met, a couple of the bar owners and shop owners and people who lived there, and they would have sold that land and got good money for it. So the whole country's getting a lot of investment. It's not just the Bitcoiners as well. He also opened because I guess he looked at stuff he could offer. El Salvador could offer to the world, and one of them was their great surf. And he opened, he made the surf city, and he brought in a lot of surfers and got a lot of tourism, economic growth from that as well. And Bekele was a grinder. There's lots of stuff he's done which arguably isn't very democratic, and he could go the way of being a dictator. I hope he doesn't. When I've heard him speak, some of his speeches are very awe-inspiring, and he's got a real good take on Bitcoin. But that country it's gone from being the most backward. I mean, had the highest murder rate in the whole world, including war zones, at that
Yeah.
particular point in time. And now it's like one of the safest places to be on that, that hemisphere, which is a real incredible thing to achieve within, 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 3, 4 years. That's insane. And yeah, clearly other countries are going to look at that model and think, well, that worked for him. Why couldn't it work for us? And we said this at the time. We said it's the domino effect. It shows that a country can be favorable to Bitcoin and it can reap the rewards of being favorable to Bitcoin. So that's pretty much on the El Salvador stuff and Bukele. But on the MicroStrategy part, I love to hate Michael Saylor. And he has said some really stupid stuff about how now the adults are in the room and Bitcoin, kind of talked about Bitcoin as being a hacky project, and now you need the Bitcoin to be held by banks and blah blah blah. I'm not sure maybe whether he was just playing to the Wall Street crowd or not when he said those things. But he has also rehashed a lot of the things we've said, and maybe some of that stuff has sunk in. But it's a micro, and he did almost get wiped out as well. Like Josh was saying, he was very, very close for my whole MicroStrategy experiment failing. But it is a MicroStrategy. Like, I give him shit for not investing any of the money they made back into nurturing the industry, which is making the money for them and making the thing actually work. Like, he hasn't funded any projects, he hasn't funded any free and open source projects, hasn't made any investments into Bitcoin companies. That's another thing, but arguably it's in the name MicroStrategy. He found a glitch in the system. When you have a world of fiat finance where Bitcoin exists, you buy some Bitcoin, you then finance the Bitcoin, get bank loans on the Bitcoin, buy more Bitcoin, finance that Bitcoin, and you just do this, and it's an infinite money printing bug. He's found a glitch in the system, and I don't know how long that glitch in the system will be able to exist because, yeah, I mean, this is how they've accumulated such a huge fortune. And what they've also done as well, by being the only place a lot of so say Bitcoin has had, equity in Vanguard or in the financial system, which they couldn't sell. Maybe they worked for a company and then they had some equity and they couldn't sell it, but they can switch it to another company. The only company they could do that to, which was just, linked to Bitcoin, was MicroStrategy. So you had all these Bitcoiners with equity who then shifted their equity into MicroStrategy early on, and they've all been made rich as well. I've got a whole bunch of friends who've got MicroStrategy stock, and now they're making an absolute killing buying and selling options in MicroStrategy because this thing is just hockey sticking up. So I think, the holdings they have now and the strategy has been proved to be very successful. So I think they're far and away clear of any danger. I think that danger has passed, which in a way I was kind of sad about because it might, I don't know, just because, but whatever. Like, they do have the first mover advantage, but I'm sure some other firms will follow suit on just that glitch, just the money glitch, which Michael Saylor is a genius as much as, he annoys me. He is a genius, and he did see the money glitch, and he took advantage of it. So, yeah, pretty impressive stuff.
It does seem like something that, and everyone's going to hate me for this, but probably needs to be legislated out of existence. We probably need some kind of market protectionism here, because, like I'm saying, if Microsoft gets into this and they stop writing code, if every company gets into this and they start being companies, and all we have is companies that hold Bitcoin, we need somebody to do something to make something. So that's where we might
AI
have
will
to
do it all.
change the
Don't
rules.
worry about
Well,
it.
I think the AI companies as well, why bother building AI if you can just hold Bitcoin and have infinite money and just use that money to buy more Bitcoin that gives you more infinite money, so on and so forth. It seems similar to football with the tush push, where they can just push the players through. When something like that happens and upsets the competitive balance, as unexciting as it may be, especially for those who broke the competitive balance, like you're saying, Michael Saylor here, you kind of have to change the rules to fix the rest of the competition. Otherwise, all your companies go away and nobody makes anything. We just hold Bitcoin.
But I
I
mean,
mean,
going back to what we were saying before, and this is also what this is what Michael Saylor says quite a lot, is if you have Bitcoin, don't sell it. Like, don't sell the underlying asset, just finance it. And it's similar to what Josh is building with the standard. Like, a lot of these Bitcoiners who burnt through their coins, maybe like Trace, maybe I don't want to speculate, but maybe some of these great thinkers we had in Bitcoin who not only burnt out just from, the Bitcoin burnout, whatever, maybe also burnt out because they burnt through their stack evangelizing. Maybe now they wouldn't have to burn through that stack because there are tools being built by people like Josh with the standard where they can not sell the underlying asset, but finance the underlying asset in some clever ways. So it'll be good to see that's, and then we probably get around some of the problems we're talking about not wanting to sell your Bitcoin because you know that it's going to go up in value in the future. You can finance it, use that money to buy a house, whatever, and then in X amount of years, you get your Bitcoin back.
We'll have to see how it goes. Let's move on to the last issue, issue 4. Kind of a negative story, but it is positive in other ways. The true story behind Netflix new movie, Biggest Heist Ever. Yes, there are spoiler alerts for Biggest Heist Ever, but you already know the story because $72 million worth of Bitcoin was allegedly stolen from Bitfinex. But who stole the money? But allegedly Heather Rosal Khan Morgan and Ilya Dutch Lichtenstein, two of the greatest characters perhaps in film history. Rosal Khan, the lady, wants to be a famous rapper, is rapping on YouTube over and over with her husband Dutch, enabling her. At least that's what the screenplay and the film seems to be. What do you guys think about the new movie, Biggest Heist Ever, featuring the alleged Bitfinex hackers Rosal Khan and Dutch? Josh Shigala?
I haven't seen it, but yeah, it's just the thing that I love about Bitcoin, and it's been like this since the start, is it just has such phenomenal characters all the way through. You know, from Ross Ulbricht or DPR, and then you've got McAfee, and you've got there's just so many events and characters that have come along, that it's phenomenal. And this is just another chapter. These people that got lucky when he refreshed the browser or something, and because they talk about a hack, but really it was just a bug that they exploited accidentally, and as far as I know, and just kept on refreshing and refreshing, and it kept on showing more and more money showing up in their wallet as he was draining Bitfinex. Amazing, absolutely phenomenal, and a story. And these two are just such characters, awful characters, but still characters nonetheless. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it.
And they were allegedly caught using Walmart gift cards to buy PlayStation. I want to say PlayStation 4s. It might have been PlayStation 3s. It was so long ago, as a way to allegedly launder the money. They had tons and tons of money, but no way to spend it. It was a really unique time of Bitcoin. Perhaps if they had just waited another 10 years, they would have been able to employ people to hide it and to spend it. They were in a big hurry, though, and they were nouveau riche. And like Josh is saying, I think these, I don't know them, I don't know of them. I watch them on YouTube like you guys, but I just think that this lady rapper on YouTube and her quiet, mild-mannered husband, who's a hacker or a computer guy or something, it's just a great story. I think it's a great movie. Maybe it could even be a great sitcom or an ongoing show. They could really flesh this story out. Maybe it's one of the great stories of our time, like Bonnie and Clyde. They robbed banks together and they romanced together at night. It's just a beautiful potential as a story. Ben,
Yeah.
Ark, what do you think about the alleged Bitfinex hackers having their own movie?
I mean, I think we said at the time as much as like they rip people off, and some friends of ours as well, but like there's something kind of lovable about them. There's that Bonnie and Clyde angle, and how weird they were. These are the masterminds behind this Bitfinex quote unquote hack. I think, yeah, like Josh was saying, it was they just stumbled across a bug, and they clearly weren't that bright because I mean, like Bitcoin is a money launderer's wet dream. There's a whole bunch of ways people launder money through Bitcoin. You coin mix, you buy some NFTs for cheap, and then you spend some of the mixed coins pumping up the NFTs, and you sell the NFT, and there you are. You've got some clean money. You've just made you've just made profit on the sale of the NFT going up. So there's money launderers use Bitcoin all the time, and the way in which they try to launder it through PlayStation gift cards or Walmart gift cards and this Alphabet thing they tried to do as well is it's pretty funny. But I met her when I was in Nashville
Did you?
this year. yeah, she came. We were setting up the sort of the hacker area, and this kind of girl came up to me that she had a weird vibe, and I sort of recognized her, and I was like, "What's this vibe?" I couldn't quite put my finger on. She gave me I can't remember what the sticker was, but she gave me this very strange sticker, loosely Bitcoin related sticker, and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And it was kind of so early that other people weren't really there. And then I realized she was just going around giving lots of people these stickers. And then there was all this talk about maybe that she was reducing her sentence and maybe being recruited by CIA or FBI or something like that to act as an informant. But it's very strange that I mean, if I was her,
Yeah, that was weird.
because of the amount, yeah, it's weird because the amount of people she'd ripped off. If I was her, I wouldn't be running around a Bitcoin conference.
Mm.
Very odd. But the terms they got as well. I think she got 18 months, didn't she? And he got like 6 years or something, which is really not much for the amount of money they stole. But anyway,
It
yeah,
does seem
can't wait
similar
to
to
watch it.
Carpellis or SBF, where in a way, like Theranos, stealing all this money, you ran a big company, even though it was a fraud and it was a theft and it resulted in disaster, and that made you kind of famous. And this qualifies you to then run another big company. In the same way that these failed commentators who didn't see Bitcoin, that's now a qualification for them to talk about Bitcoin, their lack of seeing, their lack of foresight. These people ran their companies into the ground, and now people say, let's give them a second chance. But a second chance is not warranted. Look at SPF. He doesn't run the company at all. They ran the finances out of QuickBooks, right? He should have stepped aside a dozen times because he was over his head. But the lesson that we're saying is over his head cost people their savings, their life savings. Give him another chance. Let's Charlie Shrem him. Let's Mark Karpellis him. Give him another job. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it is weird. I mean, I think with the SBF example, he he understood the game working with VCs and investors that he has to pretend to be this genius savant and play the character and then they bought into it. But yeah, these two guys weren't geniuses. I really look forward to the Netflix on this one for these two. But then also, yeah, the SBF guy. Uh, I'm sure that'll be a cracking Netflix miniseries too.
I can't
Yeah.
wait. And I'm surprised we haven't gotten more details on the polycule and that there's not a tell-all book. I was inside the compound with SBF and I saw dot dot dot. I think I would read that. I think anybody would read that. And like Ben saying, you could pre-sell the movie rights. That's an easy movie right there. All right, I think we're running out of time. It's been a really long show, but we had nothing but positive stories as Bitcoin breaks $100,000, and we're all
Yeah.
nothing but positive. Josh Agala, do you have a prediction or a story of the week as we finish out this incredible positive show? Even the eight
Yeah.
ball was positive.
Even the 8 ball got on board. No, I just want to say we've been working 4 years on the standard.io. I'm very, very proud of the team. We're a small team, and what we've built is really phenomenal. It's really working well now. Um, and we are just about to upgrade the contracts to basically solidify almost an iron dome for these things. So it's really exciting. 4.1 volts are being audited by Cyphren, who are some of the core developers of Chainlink and some of the technology that they've built with oracles and stuff. Amazing guys. So they're auditing us as of Monday, these final smart contracts. And yeah, come and please check us out and join the community and have a chat. We've got the community's growing a lot but it's still small. But it's just a really nice community. It's not overwhelming with heaps of chat constantly going. It's a really nice community. People talk really great alpha info in there. And also, it's not just dumbass, meme coin crap. It's real conversations and good stuff. So, yeah, come and check out the standard.io and what we're building, and give us some feedback as well. You can test it out and give us some feedback, see what you think.
It is quite something, Josh, when a community is still small and you can contribute to it. I like this community, even though we've gotten a little smaller. So everyone just take a chance, give us a thumbs up down below.
Yeah.
It's showing me the average view duration, and I can tell you guys at 18 minutes and 30 seconds, this is ridiculous. You guys are watching long form content on YouTube. You're experiencing it in a way that no one else is. They're watching these 30-second shorts and they're having 30-second ideas in their head. I think if you watch long form stuff, you can think longer, you can explore ideas, and I'm excited to explore these ideas with you. Even if we're a smaller audience than we used to be, and we'd get maybe more audience if we predicted the future more with the 8 ball. But we like you guys, the thoughtful ones. Shout out to Schrodinger's Starship Schrodinger's Destiny. He says someone that has failed at running a company is probably a better bet than someone that hasn't. The failure teaches you lessons. And I agree with that. It's a possibility. And Baxter says aviation saying it's better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than in the air wishing you were on the ground. So good
Nice.
stuff, guys. Thanks for chatting with us today. Ben, Ark, do you have a prediction or a story of the week? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the audience is small, but when you go to these conferences, you realize legit people watch the show, when you have, some of the greatest names in Bitcoin coming up and going, oh, I watched that WCN show and blah, 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 which I've had multiple times. So it's quality, not quantity. And we've been around for 11 years and the
And a
show has
day.
broken and a day. That's true. That's an important day. And it's broken so many so many great ideas have come out of the show and innovations and projects. And yeah, man, it's sick. It's a great thing to be a part of. Story of the week is I was in Portugal, me and the Alan Bits team, we've been hanging out and we were just chatting about, just we're coming into V1 for Alan Bits, probably like January the 1st or something. We're going to get a release candidate out before we
Awesome.
break up for Christmas. And then we're V1ing, so that's going to be really exciting. But there's a lot of work to do for that. It makes building extensions way easier. So that's a lot of fun. I knocked out last week I knocked out like a couple of new extensions, a couple of gambling extensions, a coin flip extension, which was fun. And then also a lottery type extension. And I was thinking about doing like a numbers one too, but for like block height or something. My Noster. So the Nippo 5 stuff. So selling pretty names on my Noster. We've been working on stuff to make that better. So that was the week pretty much, just hanging out with the guys and just not that much coding, really just sitting around, just summarizing where we've come to. It's 4.5, 5 years of similar to the standard actually. Yeah, like a bunch of years building the thing, and now V1, and it's quite exciting, but also terrifying. Because this is then I suppose the real work begins with the adoption and stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I've got a URL, bitcoinraces.com. I've been holding on to it for years and years. I'd love to do something with LM Bits.
Let's do that.
Just having some, fake horses running or something like that. And it's, uses provably fair or something, block height.
Micropayments and gambling is really interesting. I'm not a
One
big
of the
fan of
best
gambling,
games in Vegas is an old derby game where it has the little moving horses and they come up with odds. So it's like 21 to 1, 200 to 1, 500 to 1, and then you bet your quarters on it. And I always lose, but everyone always has fun at that table.
You could probably use transactions in the mempool or something. They could be the horses, which one's going to get confirmed. The race to confirmations.
Something like that, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well done, Ben. It's great.
Well done,
it's
you.
great.
Pats on the back all round.
All round. Here we go.
Ah, very good, very good. So I don't have much of a story this week. I was going to say I'm still reading Red May by Neil Stephenson. It's great. It's all about the future where a computer virus hacks and controls your files. Then to pay the computer virus back, you have to go to a certain mountain in World of Warcraft, and you have to fight your way there. And it's a really cool idea and all kinds of other futuristic stuff in there, giving me the good ideas for the future, even though it's an older book. TV shows, I'm watching the show Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. It started out as a comedy. It's a little bit of a dramedy now, but it's still fun. I just like Jason Segel, especially because he played David Foster Wallace in the movie. And movie, I'm sticking with Dumb Money. It's got great music. It's from the COVID time. It's about the little people making money on the GameStop stock back in the day, and it reminds me of us Bitcoiners. Some of them made it, some of them lose, some of them win, and I think that's all of us. And I think, again, just that idea where hodl, and hodl's the best, but take some profits. Treat yourself nice, pay off your bills, get out of debt. These things weigh on you. Sell 1%, sell 10%. Don't sell it all, but take those ideas where you're like, hey, maybe if I took a little bit off the board here, I could have a nice weekend, or I could do something like that. Do something for yourself. And shout out to Starship in the chat. He's been watching for a long time. Says it was the first Bitcoin show he saw. His friend says, you were real for many cycles again. Good work, folks. And yeah, maybe share this show to someone else that you think might enjoy it. Someone who likes long form content with no advertisements and nobody really plugging things or working for big exchanges or big companies or anything like that. So stick with us here. We'll be back again next week. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.